Welcome to Good Horses, the podcast of the American Quarter Horse Association, where we talk about good horses. My name is Jim Jennings, and today we're doing another of our Legends Remembered segments of Good Horses, and we're going to talk about one of the legends in our breed. In Legends Remembered, we highlight some of the horses that have been inducted into the American Quarter Horse Hall of Fame, which is the highest honor that can be achieved in our industry. Our subject today is Mr. Jess Perry, an AQHA champion racehorse who became one of the best sires in quarter horse racing. Mr. Jess Perry was bred by Jesse Perry of Alexandria, Louisiana, whose son Laverne Perry was then the executive director of the Louisiana Quarter Horse Breeders Association. Because of his position with the Louisiana Association, Laverne thought it was inappropriate to race Mr. Jess Perry, so they sold him to Elliott Clark Sr. of Lake Charles, Louisiana. In April 1994, racing under Cheryl Brosseau's name, Mr. Jess Perry won 7 of 9 races and ran second twice that season. Mr. Jess Perry earned $519,430 as a 2-year-old, the second richest horse of the year behind only All-American Futurity winner Noblesse Six. Mr. Jess Perry finished 1994 as the Louisiana Quarter Horse Breeders Association Horse of the Year and American Quarter Horse Racing's champion 2-year-old and champion 2-year-old colt, making him Louisiana's first official state-bred to win a racing championship. Later, Mr. Jess Perry won the Texas Classic Derby and 3 other races. It was while the horse was racing that the late Dr. Glenn Blodgett of the 4-6s Ranch first became aware of him. Dr. Blodgett, who passed away in November 2022, was the equine manager for the 4-6s and was in charge of all the ranch's horses. We visited with Doc in Amarillo in 2019, right after Mr. Jess Perry was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he told us about when he first became aware of the horse.
Well, I was actually I happened to be attending the races at Sam Houston Race Park when he ran in the Texas Classic Futurity. And, and I didn't, that year, I guess I was on the Texas Racing Commission at the time. And anyway, I hadn't really been keeping up too much, and what I do remember is being surprised when I saw, a horse from Louisiana come over there and beat everybody, and it was a pretty unique deal. And then, after that, I went home thinking about it a little bit, and then I kind of researched his pedigree after I saw him run and took note of the bloodlines.
Mr. Jess Perry was by Streakin' La Jolla, who was by Streakin' Six, a horse Dr. Blodgett was very familiar with. Streakin' Six had earned just under $500,000 on the track, and he had spent his whole career both racing and at sire at the 4-6s. Mr. Jess Perry was out of a mare called Scoopy Finn by Sin Finn. Mr. Jess Perry began his career at stud on Rick and Brad Booty's Pleasure Time farm at Alexandria, Louisiana, where he sired some top runners. But in 1999, Dr. Blodgett started looking for a new sire for the 4-6s Ranch. The 6s had stood Dash for Cash until his death, and they had several Dash for Cash mares, so Dr. Blodgett was especially looking for a sire to cross on those mares. But let's let Dr. Blodgett tell that story.
Well, in the spring that year, I knew it was time for us to be looking for a new stallion. And we were really, really busy, and at that time I was doing everything there. I didn't really have any other support as a veterinarian, and I was doing all the rectal palpations, exams. I was collecting all the stallions and breeding all the mares, and we were it's really a hectic deal. But I knew we needed another horse, so I started kind of keep looking and thinking, and and I noticed the horses that were, that particular year, Mr. Jess Perry's first offspring were running as 2-year-olds. And the other thing I took note of is that they were breaking track records at the tracks down in Louisiana, because that's where he bred to start off with. And they were breaking records that he held himself. So, and then the other thing I noticed was that not only were the first place winners sired by Mr. Jess Perry, in many cases, the horses that ran second and third were also sired by him. So it really, really caught my eye. And I knew the bloodlines very well on the top side. I was a little unfamiliar at the time with the bottom side of his pedigree, but I did note that after examining it, there was lots of black type there. And his top side, of course, was already proven to cross good on the Dash for Cash bloodline, and there were a lot of Dash for Cash bloodline mares out there, particularly first down dash mares. So, he looked like a good horse to take a look at after what I was seeing. So I checked out the ownership, and I tried to formalize a plan to maybe pursue him. And at the time, I didn't know whether we would be pursuing him to stand him or pursuing him to buy him or what. But I knew he was something I need to take a hard look at. And so after I found out the owner, the owner was, at the time, registered owner was the Ultimate Breed, Inc. But Mr. Elliott Clark was the primary person involved there with that membership. And so I tried to find out as much about him as I could, and I knew Kenny Roberts, a trainer in Louisiana, real well, and contacted him through John and Donna McPherson, who they were a real good client of ours at the time, and known them for a long time. So anyway, in talking to the two of them, John and Donna and Kenny Roberts, we kind of all put our heads together and decided to set up a meeting with Mr. Clark. And we met in Lake Charles, Louisiana, one day at noon, and had lunch and talked about Mr. Jess Perry, and I made the decision at the time. I thought the best thing here would be for us to maybe try to purchase him if we could. And and I just told Mr. Clark that I didn't want to price his horse, that I'm sure there was some number that he might take for him selling him. But I didn't know. And I said, I know you didn't come here that day with a plan on selling him. But he agreed to go home that night and discuss with his family what he might take, or they'd discuss whether they wanted to sell him or not too. Anyway, I got a call later that night, and he priced him to me, and I felt like, we needed to move as quickly as possible on this before anybody else could find out about it and maybe derail things. So anyway, I set up a meeting the following day, in Alexandria, Louisiana, with him at the Holiday Inn, and we flew over there and discussed in more detail how the transaction might take place, some of the terms and so forth. And of course, up to now, I still hadn't even seen him again since seeing him run as a 2-year-old. I hadn't seen him. Of course, seen pictures of him. Saw his. I think I watched some video of some of his races, and some of the offspring and so forth. But my whole negotiation was based on a visual inspection of him, and also a subsequent. We wanted to do a breeding soundness exam on him, collect semen from him. So the sale was conditioned on all that. And so we, after we got all that agreed to, drove out there where he was and got him out and looked him over. And I was pleased with what I saw. And then we set something up for the following day to do the breeding soundness exam. And of course, at the time, the Booties, Dr. Booty and his brother, that's who had been standing the horse over there ever since he'd been off the track. Dr. Booty was out of town. He wasn't, his clinic there right next to the breeding farm was closed. And anyway, when I reached out to him, they were talked to Dr. Booty's brother, and he was, and I understood, he was reluctant. He was, all of a sudden, he was, I'm sure, saying he might be fixed to lose the horse, and then he knew they hadn't been teasing any mares or anything. He didn't know whether he had any mares around in heat that could be used to tease a stallion. We had to collect him, and his brother was gone, and and I mean he was real apprehensive about being able to facilitate much help in evaluating the horse. And I just told him, I said I wasn't sure how it was going to be done exactly, but somehow, some way that day we were going to evaluate him. And I reached out to John and Donna again, McPherson, who live in that area. They have their farm is in that area, their breeding farm that they had. I knew they had the facilities over there we needed to do it. And I reached out to John in particular, and he went out and identified some tease mares that we could utilize. So we hauled the stallion over there to their place, and did the exam, and he passed that, and we just kept him over there for the night, and we got the money transferred the following day, and the horse moved right immediately after that. So anyway, it all happened just within about a 3-day period of time. A lot of things happened. We were real fortunate, to have the contacts we did, and everything went as well. I know one of the initial, there were several things along the way that caused some reason to get nervous. I know that the day we agreed to meet there at 3:00 in Alexandria at the Holiday Inn, well, anyway, we were there at 3. James Pruitt, he was a bloodstock agent. He was along for the ride, and he was with me, and he's a nervous type anyway. But anyway, we were there at 3 or a little before. Well, they didn't show up for nearly an hour, and he had just about decided, well, they're just not going to show up. But anyway, they did, and then we had a few things in negotiating the deal, that a few bumps there, but we were able to work through them all. And he's a nice fellow to deal with, and we got it all hammered out, just with the help of a lawyer over the phone, and being able to move documents around via faxes and so forth. We got it all handled just within 3-day period of time, really, and got the horse transported to Guthrie, and I already knew who the I'd called and found out who was authorized to sign on behalf of Ultimate Breed Inc. And we actually hand delivered the transfer paper up here at Amarillo and got him transferred over right away. So we didn't waste any time of completing the whole transaction. Anyways, and that was the start of a real, interesting life of a stay and in a breed at the 4-6s. He's just, he was really a good one for us. I mean, he touched a lot of the lives there, employees there on the ranch over the years. And, we were fortunate he had very good semen and had good numbers to go along with it. So we could always breed pretty much whatever we needed to breed on a given breeding day. Some days he might not have been quite as easy to collect as everybody liked, but we got it done. And, and he's turned out to be, one of the all-time leading sires. I mean, it's interesting. He's probably the most dominant stallion, that I've seen in my career, because mainly through he's such a sire of sires. He hadn't just sired one stallion. He's sired multiple really good stallions as well as, and then he's a leading broodmare sire along with it. I mean, he just got everything it takes.
Mr. Jess Perry retired from the track with $687,184 in earnings. His first foals were born in 1997. From this first crop, he sired 9 stakes horses and 7 stakes winners. 4 of them set 6 new track records. The next crop included 12 stakes horses and 9 stakes winners. As of today, from 27 crops to race and 1,661 starters, Mr. Jess Perry has sired 1,042 winners, including 2010 All-American Futurity winner Mr. Piloto and 2010 World Champion racehorse Apolitical Jess. He also sired 2 winners of the Los Alamitos $2 million Futurity, Matabari and 1 Famous Eagle. And he has 165 other stakes winners and 182 stakes place runners. He is the number 3 all-time sire of money earners. Mr. Jess Perry is the second all-time leading broodmare sire of money earners, with his daughters having produced runners that have earned just under $129 million. But as I mentioned a while ago, having had Dash for Cash at the ranch and having a lot of his daughters played a big part in Dr. Blodgett wanting to acquire Mr. Jess Perry.
We already knew mainly through Streaking 6, which was his grandsire, that, Streaking 6 had just been a real asset to Dash for Cash, really. I mean, he stood in the shadows along with side by side, basically, during his breeding career at the Phillips Ranch. And most of their careers. Both their careers ended at the 4.6s, but it was interesting. A lot of his daughters got bred to him because some of the syndicate members were, they were members of both syndicates, and once they had some offspring, they crossed them, and of course those were already being identified as being the produce from that cross were already very successful. So we kind of knew that was there, and the fact that there was some, I was hopeful here. I didn't know, but with the other black type on his bottom side, that sin fin, there were really, other than you saw it on paper about all the produce and strength there, but there wasn't a lot of that around. So if it worked, which I hoped it did, that part of it was compatible. We'd really have an asset as far as being somewhat of an outcross. But he's, we're just been really fortunate, and he went on, he's some of these, the first down dash for cash, just been really good crosses on him. And then, and now, you just see his sons excelling, and of course the broodmare's been around too. But I've been lucky to have been associated with a lot of really good stallions, and he's really right up there. He's really special.
Dr. Blodgett mentioned about Mr. Jess Perry being syndicated, and that was a decision that was made early on.
When we initially bought him, my plan was to stand him, but I hadn't had him home a month, and I could tell this guy was extremely popular. Yeah. And everybody was shocked that we were able to get him, but he was on the radar of some other people too, to breed to or whatever. But anyway, I could immediately see we had a lot of potential here, and actually, had verbally agreed to, hadn't done any contracts yet, but to sell some breedings to people, a few. And then, I think late September, early October is when we really made the decision to syndicate him. Of course, we did. Once we did that, we got, we sold everything we wanted to sell in a hurry. Probably within 30 days. As soon as we got the documents together and it got him done, and, and we were been involved in a lot of syndicated horses there. We knew how to handle that, manage that syndicate situation with, we had, in fact, a lot of the same people involved in a lot of those horses. There's some new faces, but anyway, we just had a lot of repeat people involved in syndications with us, and we've been lucky that we had the right horses, and we had good success with them, and everybody's was happy, and they did. We had that first year, we had him syndicated, and of course everybody was thrilled about getting involved with him, and we were able to sell some breedings too, because we had enough shares where we could sell a few. So anyway, it all came together, and he was always a good horse to promote, when you, and of course he kind of hit the ground running for us because he already had, we didn't have to wait on his, we didn't have to wait to see the foals, or wait for them to run, because he already had them out there. He had there were there were 2-year-olds running, like I said, and then we had mares that were in foal to him that year, and we had weanlings and yearlings. And some of those horses came on and did real well, and they were, of course, already either, born or in the oven really before we got involved with him, and he just took off. He really did, and we were probably, in a syndicated situation, you tend to get, in general, you usually get a better group of mares. It's overall, and because the syndicate members feel like they need to support the horse with their best mares, and so it's kind of a win-win on both sides, really, when you've got a good producing horse.
On November 15, 2017, Mr. Jess Perry was euthanized due to complications of age and laminitis. He was buried on the 4 Sixes Ranch alongside Streak and Six, Special Effort, and Ocean Runaway.
He's going to leave behind such a strength on both sides as compared to some other great stallions, which were primarily broodmare sires or, in some cases, sires of sires. But there are not too many of these racing quarters out there that have made a sire of multiple really great stallions, and he's been a leading broodmare we've known for even before he identified himself as a sire of sires. He's been a leading broodmare sire for a long time. So it's, he's got a pretty deep foothold in a legacy for a stallion. He's going to be here for a long time.
Mr. Jess Perry was one of the good ones, and like Doc said, we're going to hear about him for a long time to come. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be talking about more good horses, and we'll have more legends remembered. But in the meantime, if you want to know more about the horses that are in the American Quarter Horse Hall of Fame, go to AQHA.com/museum. Thanks for joining us at Good Horses and Legends Remembered, and be sure to tune in next time as we continue honoring good horses.